Welcome to the Win Make Give podcast. It's Chad Hyams on the East Coast, Bob Stewart representing the West Coast. Bob, how are you doing over there on that side today?
I'm hot. And if I could just tell you why I'm hot, it's because our guest, before we were getting started, mentioned that he's got a fan going in the background. And then I looked up over your head, and I know our audience can't see us, but you have a fan going. Yes. And it made it I guess it turned on my reticular activator because I started looking around and I'm like, the air's really stale in here. I'm hot. I need a fan. And I was not thinking that before we started, but now I realize I'm hot and I need a fan. Right. So that's how I'm doing.
Bob Stewart, I have two fans. You see another one by me. So if you want, I can activate that one for you. In fairness, I'll have two. So we'll average everybody having a fan.
Yeah. That's not going to help me at all. Thanks.
All right. Well, folks, we know you are a fan of the Win Make Give podcast.
I see what you did there.
Right. That's why you keep coming back, having some fun and learning with Bob and I. Sometimes it's learning with Chad and whoever he brings on the show. Sometimes Bob brings some amazing value. Other times he just brings comic relief. Today, we are going to really lean in, Bob, to the tag we have with Win Make Give with health, wealth, leadership, and legacy. And today we are really going to focus on leadership. We went out and we got ourselves a leadership expert for today's conversation. Let's get right to it and welcome Michael Timms to the Win Make Give podcast. Michael, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chad. Glad to be here. And thanks, Bob.
Let's get right into it, Michael. We don't read bios. I have a beautiful bio of yours. We don't read them because bios were written, to make people, but just tell us the truth, right? Who is Michael?
So I'm a father. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I have 3 daughters. I have 3 teenage daughters. So that'll give you kind of a good foundation as far as who I am.
And you still have hair. That's amazing.
That's right. So, I worked in the business world and in industry for a number of years. I worked in the human resources for a long time, and got disenchanted with the way that my leaders were treating me and the impact that it was having on me. And so I decided to learn more about leadership and how to be an effective leader, and teach others. And I've been doing that for over 10 years now since leading industry. On the fun side of things, I lived in the Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada area for a long time. But I moved
my family. One of my favorite cities in the world, by the way, Michael.
Oh, right on. Cool. Glad you like it.
So beautiful.
Well, Bob, where are you located?
We're in Seattle. I'm in Seattle, but I grew up in Blaine, the little town on the border. And we used to go up there a lot. And I think Vancouver is a really cool one. When I went to Asia for the first time and then came back and then go to Vancouver, I'm like, it's got the architecture's like that. Everybody's always out walking around. And I don't know, I just love the city.
Blaine, actually, it's kind of funny. I love going, driving from the U.S. into Canada because, for example, you get to Blaine, and Blaine is, no offense if you have family or friends there, but it's you feel like you're driving off the edge of the earth, right? This is like a podunk little town, and you're like, we're getting there's no civilization. Then you get to the border, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're into a big city once you cross into Canada. But anyways,
by the way, you got to pass the zoo on the way into the big city because the first time I made the drive, I was like, I could swear I just saw a giraffe, but I did not realize there was a zoo just over the border right there. So
it is a podunk town. For a kid that got moved to Blaine, when my mom moved us up there, I have this vivid memory of us driving up into Blaine the very first time. And she's like, look how beautiful the sunset is. And I'm like, of course the sunset's beautiful. We're at the edge of the earth, mother. We're closer to the sunset. It was, but it's a podunky little place.
Okay, so this episode is not about Vancouver.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so anyways, I totally got sidetracked.
Yeah, I can tell you about the best dim sum restaurant there. I proposed to my wife in Whistler Mountain. Bob knows the place. We all know Vancouver very well.
You should go.
Right. Anyways, my point was I moved my family from the Vancouver area into kind of the interior of British Columbia, which is kind of the Napa Valley of Canada. Lots of wineries, lots of lakes and mountains, and just great place for skiing and mountain biking and outdoor recreation. So I like to do all those things for fun. So there you go. That was a really long way of getting to that.
All right. So we love Vancouver, yet I think I'm now disenchanted with you, Michael, because I call Toronto home. And there is a like New York Boston rivalry, folks, between Toronto, Vancouver. I mean, it's that same sort of thing. So this could be an issue. Yeah, we're gonna talk with Michael. And when I booked Michael to join us, there was one word that was the reason I really wanted to get him, and it's right in the title of his book. So you can check out his book. I'm sure we'll talk about it today. And it's How Leaders Can Inspire Accountability. And you know I love that word so much. We'll definitely talk about that. Amazon, easiest place for them to get it, Michael?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then I want everyone to check out Michael's TEDx talk, because he's also got one of those. You can find it, How to Claim Your Leadership Power. Google them. Go find it on the TEDx app.
Can I start, Chad? Can I start?
Bob. Yep.
So, Michael, you said something. I was disenfranchised or disenchanted by my leadership and the leaders that I had kind of coming through the corporate structure or whatever. Can you pinpoint what it was about those leaders that I don't want to say bad, but I'm going to use that word. But what was it they were doing that was leaving you with a taste where you're like, I don't want to do this. In fact, I want to change the culture of leadership.
It's kind of funny, actually. I hadn't really thought about that specifically. But when I think about, this last guy, he was just brutal and really, really inspired me to never have a boss ever again. A couple of things. A lot of times, when I'm speaking to potential clients, they're basically saying, hey, Michael, what we want is we want our employees to really take ownership of their work, take pride in their work, and, and kind of, make it their baby and kind of run with it. Right. That is the holy grail of leadership, right? That is the outcome that leadership is supposed to produce. A whole bunch of people who are aligned on achieving the right goal and owning their work, having pride in their work, wanting to see it through to the end, and doing a great job. But what oftentimes, and specifically this guy, he was a super micromanager, which he insisted that every decision go through him. It was absurd how small decisions he had to have a say on. Which, when you think about it, it completely robs people of the ability to take ownership of anything. When you're kind of diving in there and you have to have a say on everything, right? How can anybody take ownership? Which is, and then they, they'll call me and say, hey, Michael, why are my people not taking the initiative? Why are my people not taking ownership? Right. So that was one thing that he did. Another thing that he did, and I think a lot of leaders unintentionally do this, is when people in leadership positions see a problem, they immediately think it's my employee's fault, right? The reason that I have a problem is this person, they made a mistake, they're lazy, they're careless, and they take zero ownership themselves for the problem. And they do not say, and this guy in particular, any problem, it was never his fault, right? It was always other people's fault. And it's really, how can you expect other people to take ownership of problems and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, here's a problem, and maybe I was part of this problem, and here's what I'm going to do to solve it. How can you expect other people to do that if the leader never does that themselves? So that was you had a very specific question. That was my very specific answer for you.
To me, I don't know, many of these things fall under a lack of self-awareness or low emotional intelligence or something. Would you have called that last manager guy somebody that was had low emotional intelligence?
Well, for sure. I think he was probably a sociopath.
All right. Leadership lesson number one, don't work for a sociopath. Got it. Okay.
So no, hey, Bob, let me just back that up though. I'd say the number one problem with why we see a lack of accountability in organizations is just exactly what you kind of where you were going. Is okay, well, who are these people who don't take ownership, who don't take accountability? Who are these people who have low self-awareness? And my answer to you, Bob, is pretty much everybody. And that's the bias right there. And I'm not picking on you, but I could sense a little bit in your tone, in your kind of the question there is, the bias is like, who are these people who really don't take ownership? And the reality is it's more us than we think. And I actually do a little bit of a psychological experiment with when I'm usually speaking to groups of CEOs or executives. And I want them to see that bias. I want them to see that when we're talking about accountability, almost always they are thinking, yeah, these people on my team, if we could just step up their accountability, all my problems would be solved. And I do a little thing with them to show them, and they have a little bit of a light bulb moment, and they're like, oh, Michael totally just caught me in that thought.
Wait, is this like a long exercise, or is this an exercise we go? Because I'm fascinated by this.
Well, now we know how it ends, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just tell you how it goes. So here's how it goes. I just basically say, hey, look, if you, as a leader, if you want to influence and increase the level of accountability and ownership of your and execution in your organization, there are basically three ways you can do that. Three ways you can really influence in your organization. One is through your own personal example, right? As you step up your level of accountability, it has this effect on other people, and they follow suit. They tend to follow suit. Two is the way in which you hold people accountable. Right? Are you kind of beating them over the head, or are you having, is it supportive accountability? Three is there are some organizational changes you can make to make it easier for people to get the right results. And so I said, if you had the choice of what would you prefer to learn about today? And I have them answer that on a live polling app. They answer on the live polling app. I can't see the results. And I say, before I show you the results, let me tell you how you voted. I don't know what you want to talk about the most. I don't know what your favorite topic is, but I can tell you what the least interested topic is, and that is, how can I increase my own level of personal accountability?
And probably always. You've done this 100 times, and 100 times that's been the last.
I've done this hundreds, plural, of times, and it's almost always like that, right? Where virtually nobody says, yeah, I want to learn, how can I be a better example of accountability myself, recognizing that accountability for the organization starts with them. And so people tend to have a light bulb moment, and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, I totally am thinking about accountability as it's their problem, it's their fault. And if they would just step up, everything would be better. But really, it starts with the leader.
Okay, before we get into that, define accountability as you define it, not as I'm going to find in a dictionary.
Yeah, so I define it as taking ownership of results, not tasks. But the definition is taking ownership of results and focusing on what you can do to improve future results. So it's, hey, I'm going to take ownership of my present, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make the future a better place. Okay, so it's kind of two parts. So yeah, I could expand on that, but anyways, do you have any other questions?
I'm happy for you to expand on that. When the expert says I can expand on it, I know to shut up.
Okay, now, so taking ownership of results, and I made the distinction there between taking ownership of tasks. And that's really the difference. A lot of people use the words responsibility and accountability interchangeably, but they're very different things. Responsibility is taking ownership of tasks, right, or activities, right? If you do everything on your job description, you are a responsible employee. If you do everything, that's expected of parents, you're a responsible parent. Okay, that's great. We want responsible people. Accountability is different. Accountability is taking ownership of results. So that means a lot of times people come to work thinking that their job is simply to do what their boss tells them to do the things on their job description. And they're like, and when things don't work out, it's like, oh, well, I don't know. That's not my problem. It's your problem. I did everything I was supposed to do. That's not the behavior we're looking for. We're looking for people who are like, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get the right result. Right now, let me just quickly define results. I'm not just talking about hitting your numbers. Results also includes what impact you're having on individuals and the organization, right? But taking ownership of results as opposed to activities.
Can I stop you right here real quick? Because I want to do results need to be quantifiable? Because you just said, your impact on the organization. I think that's really hard to quantify. Like, is Bob having a positive or a negative impact on the organization, and to what degree? So do results need to be quantifiable, or can they be these kind of things that I kind of have a sense of, but I can't actually put a number to them?
No. I think the point is, hey, look, if I have discord on my team, if people are not getting along, and I'm part of that team, I need to take ownership of that. And what is my part in that? Like, how am I contributing to this, this lack of teamwork?
So they can be something that's not, I can't totally assign a number to necessarily. Okay.
It can be, right? But my point is that I think most people think that they were hired to simply complete a set of tasks. And once their job is done, they're out. And that's, and their boss has to take care of the results, good or bad. But I don't know anybody on the planet who was actually hired to simply complete a set of tasks. Everybody that I know, every position that I'm aware of, the person was hired to fill that position to accomplish certain results, to achieve certain results, right? And I think as leaders, we don't do a good enough job of defining that and letting people know, hey, look, I don't really care kind of exactly what you do. I care about what you produce, as far as, the output that we're supposed to produce, as well as your impact on those around you. So that's part one of the definition of taking ownership of results, not simply tasks. And the other part is focusing on what you can do to improve future results, as opposed to focusing on what Chad can do, right? Or focusing on what Bob can do. I need to focus on what I can do, because it's really easy to point the finger and say, well, if they would do their job, I can't do my job until they do their job or whatever, right? We've heard those kinds of comments before.
It's like the great marketing versus sales debate, right? Sales like, the marketing team's not getting us enough leads. And the marketing team's like, you got a whole bunch of leads you haven't called from last month, right? And it's this like,
totally. Or and I see that, or like the marketing or sales and operations, right? It's like sales sold a bag of crap and threw it over to operations to produce, right? And you know what? I actually just saw an example of this, of a lack of accountability. I'm actually living this right now, having a little bit of anxiety because I'm joining you on Wi-Fi. I'm not hardwired in because I had a new tenant in my building come in, and he got wired up for internet. And the technician came in and just said, I've got a number of cables here. This one's in use. Who cares? I'm going to cut it. And I'm going to give it to that guy. So my neighbor has my internet right now. So I'm borrowing the Wi-Fi signal from another neighbor. So, that's an example.
A task. That electric, well, he just like, task. I'm going to complete this task.
He's like,
no
my job,
consideration for the future results.
I got from the office, it says, give this person internet. I got that person internet, right? I did my job. No, that wasn't your job. And that's really not taking ownership of the results. And that's really not focus. That's a short-term quick fix at the expense of the future, right? Because we're going to call that same guy back, and he's going to have to fix it. Now he doesn't care. He's like, well, I can get whatever. But yeah, that's an example of not focusing on what you can do to improve future results, and not focusing and not taking ownership of results. There you go.
So, okay. I mean, you mentioned three things, right? Increasing my own, like, personal examples, supportive.
Which is where we're going to focus today. Keep going.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay. And so most of them don't want to talk about personally and personal accountability, but you always end up, I'm assuming, going there because it's the one thing that, like, probably is the tip of the spear in terms of changing organizationally, how, we kind of collectively show up. So how do you do this? Like, how do you start to, especially if you're somebody that's like your own boss who's like, it's never my fault, or like, how do I start to make a change here?
Yeah, so there are,
because I assume most of us aren't sociopaths or psychopaths or whatever your boss was, right? Like, we want to do better. Some of us don't, but let's discount
you're right.
that guy.
You're absolutely right. Most of us are not sociopaths, right? And most of us do want to have a positive impact on people. But I think most of us are blind to the things that we're doing or not doing that's actually, number one, hurting our relationships, and number two, hurting other people's ability to accomplish what we want them to accomplish. And there are 3 simple but very difficult habits that personal accountability just boils down to doing these 3 things. And these 3 habits.
A good list, Chad? 1, 2, 3. I'm reading
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So habit 1 is don't blame. Now, why? Because blame kills accountability. And I'll explain why in a minute. Habit 2 is look in the mirror, right? And acknowledge your part in problems. And habit 3 is engineer the solution. Focus on fixing processes, not on fixing people. So those 3 habits, really, you can boil personal accountability down to those 3 things. And I start off with, don't blame, because blame kills accountability in yourself, right? Because if I'm blaming Chad for a problem, I'm not taking accountability for it, right? And it also kills accountability in others, because if I'm blaming Chad for something, Chad's initial reaction to that is to get defensive and to say, no, Michael, you're wrong, right? If I blame him, the last thing he's going to do is say, oh, you know what, Michael, you're right. I am an idiot. Thanks for pointing that out, right? So no, when we blame people, we are going to produce in them the complete opposite behavior that we want to see. What we want to see is people saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I don't think the whole thing is on me, but here's my part in it, and here's what I'm going to do to get a better result. But when we blame them, that's the last thing they're going to do. So that's habit 1. Habit 2 is look in the mirror and acknowledge your part in problems. And the reason why this is important, and this is counterintuitive, is because we all have a really annoying psychological gremlin that is messing with our decision-making all the time. It's called the fundamental attribution error. You don't have to remember that. Just remember that basically, if you walk into a room and you see a problem, and there are 10 possible things in that room that could have created that problem, if one of those things is a human being, that's the only thing you can focus on. That's the only thing you can see. And you're like, aha, I found the reason for this problem. And his name is...
If you have kids, by the way, this is like, if something goes wrong in your house, you're like,
totally. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Them. They're like, well, I didn't do that. You're like,
who did this? Right.
This just happened the other day. I opened a window in my son's room. He's got some stuff on his deal. I came in there like 3 hours later. All the stuff was on the floor. And I'm like, but Carter, why did you throw all this on the floor? And he's like, I didn't do it. The wind had blown his shades into the stuff and had knocked it down. And after standing in there for like 5 minutes, he's like, Dad, I didn't do it. I'm like, oh, I see what happened now. But you 100%.
So that is a fantastic example, Bob. And this is so. Here's what's going on inside, and this is the key. I think this is really important. This was the turning point for me in my ability to hold myself accountable. Is coming to this realization that there is something in my brain that blinds me to all of the other potential causes for a problem. And the only thing that I can see is the other human being in the room, right? And they must have done it. It's just this weird thing. It's a psychological thing. And now with fMRI imaging, we're starting to actually see why. It's actually literally the way your brain mechanics, like the way your brain is actually wired. So I
bet some of us have experiences, Michael, from our upbringings that make that even more pronounced.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Well, I used
Carter's going to be burned forever that his dad blamed him for knocking all that.
I used to get paddled.
Oh yeah, totally.
With stuff, I used to get paddled, right? And so it was like my parents would bring I had 3 brothers. They'd bring us all in the room, and they'd be like, "Who did this thing?" Right? And we like sometimes we'd all go down together. We're like, none of us did it, and it might not have been in it, but we would get spanked if nobody would say who had done the thing. And if one of us didn't admit to do it, all of us would get spanked. I think stuff like that can put you in a, like, it changes your brain, right? And so later on in life, you see this scenario and you're like, somebody's to blame here. It had to have been you. Like, they're just experiences, I think, can make that even more pronounced potentially.
Exactly. When you think about that experience, right? When you think about that experience, did that make you guys more likely the next time to say, yeah, that was me? No, it did not, right? It did not. So when people, and I think in the back of our minds, when we blame people for problems, we think we're trying to get them to admit, when in fact that's the opposite thing that they're going to do. But coming to this realization, when we realize that, yeah, actually, because we're always told, oh, give people the benefit of the doubt. That's actually literally the opposite of the way our brains are wired. We are wired to not give people the benefit of the doubt. We are wired to assume that they're screw ups and that they caused those problems on purpose because they're lazy, careless, whatever, right? Coming to that realization really helped me because, and I'll tell you a quick story about looking in the mirror. Just simple. Actually, this is a simple office thing. Like I have these, like I was telling you about these templates that I use, or these live polling. I use a live polling app, and we have these templates of these live polling apps, and we have a bunch of them, right? One day I found that one of them was deleted. I didn't have any backups. And it was going to be a major hassle to try to figure out, okay, what were the questions on this live polling template? So I called my assistant, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't do it." And then and immediately she's like, "Oh, it would have been Mel. Mel was another person who worked in our organization. Had to be her." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to murder Mel." I'm like, "Okay, well, before we resort to killing people in our organization, let's just pause and let's walk through these 3 habits." And we were both like, "Okay, so don't blame." No, we're still both angry. Okay, that didn't work. And then it's like, okay, look in the mirror. And as soon as I said, look in the mirror, and I said, how may I have contributed to this problem? I was like, you know what? I have almost accidentally deleted one of those templates. And then my assistant was just like, oh, actually, you know what? So have I. Well, why? Well, because our templates are all mixed in with our work in progress. It's all, and we're deleting our work in progress all the time. And so it's super easy, right? And so what we did effectively is we laid this trap for Mel. She just happened to be the first person to fall into this trap that we laid by a really bad process. And a simple solution, which takes me to habit 3, is engineer the solution, which is create a folder called templates and put the templates in the folder to make it less likely that somebody's going to make that mistake. But when we realize that, those 3 habits, if we follow those 3 habits, number one, we are going to get better solutions, right? Because if we didn't go through that, the solution would be Carrie, my assistant, would have murdered Mel, right? She would have had a really uncomfortable conversation. Why did you delete it? You're so careless. You got to be more careful. Well, when you tell somebody, when your solution is, well, you should be more careful next time, you can guarantee that problem is going to happen again. Why? Because we are human beings. We get tired, we get distracted, we forget things we shouldn't forget. That's part of being human.
I think when you stack all the, like this is one small little example, but like that thing you just described happens in 100 different ways this year. And if, was it Mel who was the culprit? If Mel was always getting these little, you messed this up, you did that, like eventually Mel's just like, I don't know, I don't belong here. Like I'm screwing everything.
Totally.
And it just cascades, I think. And it's these small little things that maybe as that leader, you don't even really recognize that it's
well, I love your
example.
You know what, Bob? I love your example, actually, with your son. That's a perfect example, right? You came into the room, your immediate response, because you got that silly gremlin in your head, we all do, your immediate response was, where's the human? Oh, that's my son. He must have done it, right? But then, the engineering the solution is then, well, what can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again, that the wind doesn't, blow this over again? Well, we can engineer that. We can either close the window, turn on the AC, whatever. We can move that further away from the window.
I pulled the shades up a little bit so that they're clear of all his little, I don't know, his little figures or what, his little bobbleheads or whatever. But engineer the solution.
Or you could be like, well, you just be more careful next time, right? That's going to demotivate him. It's going to demoralize him. And he's going to be feeling like I'm a screw up. My dad thinks I'm dumb, right? So it's I think a pretty simple choice that we have, but I think most of us don't realize that there is that choice. But the choice is, there are 3 simple habits that you can follow to really elevate your own personal accountability. And the cool thing is it actually inspires other people to do the same thing. Like I said, nobody is going to take accountability if they think they're going to be blamed for doing so. But if you go ahead and you say, when you come into that situation, you say, you know what, this is maybe my part. And for example, in that situation with Mel, we realized, hey, my part was I didn't have a process, and I created effectively a systematic trap, right? So that's my bad. That's on me. But when you do that, it actually makes it safe for other people to sort of raise their hand as well and say, yeah, hey, thanks, Michael, for saying that. I appreciate that. But you know what? Here's my part in this, and this is what I'll do differently next time, right? You're far more likely to get that kind of response when you go first and you hold yourself accountable. People have to give us the really kind of the emotional permission to hold them accountable. And we earn that moral authority to hold others accountable by holding ourselves accountable first.
Chad, I mean, we're super fortunate, you and I, that Ben has been, this has been his MO for years. I know, like,
sword quickly.
Yeah, he falls on the sword. He passes all the praise out and takes on a lot of the blame. He's the first one who's willing to stand up and say, look, this is my fault. And it's interesting you said, Michael, it cascades down throughout the organization, because now Chad, David Wiggs, who leads one of our divisions, he's that, like, and David may have been that guy in the beginning, but he's absolutely that guy when we show up with our customer and he says, listen, I'm going to take blame here. It wasn't his fault. Like, it wasn't David's fault. Again, maybe we're not blaming anybody, but it was a process thing or something, but he's always willing to show up, fall on the sword every time.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, we've been talking with Michael Timms, and you can get links to everything, michaeltimms.com. It's 2 M's, just so you get it right in there, folks. Your TED Talk, How to Claim Your Leadership Power. Now, we all know TED Talks are not that long. So, folks, if you found any value in this, go watch Michael's TED Talk. You can go to his website, get the link right there, or you can just go search for Michael Timms. You'll find it, How to Claim Your Leadership Power. Give me the 30 to 60 second promo of the incredibly already short TED Talk that you've created.
Look, if you want to improve the outcomes in your life, accountability is really the foundation of individual excellence and organizational excellence. But if you want to improve the outcomes that you produce, if you want to improve the outcomes that the people around you or that work for you produce, and if you just want to build your relationships and have stronger, healthier, more trusting relationships, please watch this TED Talk and do your best to adopt these 3 habits into your own personal operating system.
Folks, it's health, wealth, leadership, and legacy that we talk about on Win, Make, Give. And all of them were just wrapped up right there in that final 30 to 45 second promo about this video. Because
this was, I'll say this every so often, Chad. This is a really good interview today, Michael. Like, those 3, don't blame, look in the mirror, engineer a solution. I mean, I don't know. I think if everybody in our organization showed up in that manner, not that everybody's showing up the opposite of that by any means, right? But, like, that's really powerful stuff.
Cool.
Really, really
Glad you enjoyed it.
Surround yourself with people like that, and you're going to go a lot faster than you would have gone, even if you're that person. Yet it starts with you. Look, Bob doesn't give every episode the seal of approval, but he gave this one. So there's somebody you should be sharing this episode with and sharing Michael's TEDx talk. So you can check that
real quick before you shut this down. I'm like almost overwhelmed by the amount of fundamental attribution error I've made in my life. I've never heard that phrase. Like, that whole concept, I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like,
I was thinking where dogs and cats rank on that scale because, the cat always gets away with it and the dog always gets blamed. Is it human, dog, cat, then inanimate object? I mean, is that how that scale would work?
No, honestly, man, I got to tell you that was a serious turning point in my life when I can actually kind of take a look at my brain and see what's going on, and anytime something's missing or anything that's gone wrong around the house, right? Immediately, I'm like, oh, my wife did it, or my kids did it, right? And it's like, and a lot of times that's not the case. So, actually, probably most of the time that I'm blaming them for something, I'd say more than 50% of the time it was actually me.
This is me. I'm like, where did you guys grab my wallet? Who moved my wallet? I'm sure I said it right here.
Who is hiding my wallet, right?
Right. Yes. And it's this episode alone will save marriages for the men out there that pay attention to that lesson. Michael, thank you so much for sharing with us, folks. Check him out, michaeltims.com. Until our next episode, as always, do good.